Hi. It's been a while. Yeah. It's kind of a common theme on this channel at this point. Usually the videos that come out, I feel the need to start out by saying, yeah, it's been a while. First of all, I would just like to acknowledge the fact that there's been an influx of subscribers as of late, and I just want to sincerely and just very thankfully commemorate all of you for doing so, because it really means a lot to me. And I absolutely love that there are so many people so far, at least 208 at this point, that have really been enjoying my content. So thank you guys so much. I hope that you find something entertaining or fun from the stuff that I make. And I would love to give every single one of you a kiss on the cheek goodnight tonight, but unfortunately, my manager has told me that that is not viable at the moment. But without further ado, I would like to introduce this new little series I'm starting called Smorgasbord as basically a laid-back, more low-edited, kind of quicker video that I can get out of me just very casually talking about various pieces of media like movies, games, TV shows, music even that I've been consuming lately. Just something to break up the large, ginormous gaps of no content that I have tended to fill onto this channel. So without further ado, let's get right into just jumping into it. So for the first thing I want to talk about, the black phone. This pretty much just completely got overwhelmed and consumed by the mass hysteria that was caused by the Minions Rise of Gru, which I still refuse to see, by the way. But I decided that it looked neat and interesting enough, and I was in the mood for a horror movie. So I went out, I saw it, and it was pretty alright, I guess. The Black Phone is about a group of kids who live in a suburban neighborhood that is being terrorized by a mass amount of child kidnappings that have been happening over the course of the past couple of months. The main character, Finney Shaw, experiences one of these kidnappings firsthand and has to maneuver his way out of his captor's clutches. So an interesting thing I didn't even know about this movie going into it was that it was actually directed by the dude who made Sinister. And I thought Sinister was a pretty good movie. It had some neat ideas. It was a fun, campy kind of horror movie style. But this is really trying to be something more, it seems like. It's really trying to be something that gets a lot more under your skin and tries to be a lot more realistic almost than Sinister. And that basic fact really just hampers the movie down for a vast majority of it. I was incredibly bored while watching this movie. 9 to 5, I was pretty much checked out after the 30-minute mark because this movie is really just not all that scary in the slightest. Ethan Hawke has pretty much just been slathered on every single piece of promotional material, more so than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson himself. And he really under-delivered, in my opinion. He's got this, like, weird, wacko kind of psychotic character that he's playing, and I don't know if it's literally just Ethan Hawke and he's just miscast into this role, or the way that he was playing it was just so underplayed and so, like, I just couldn't take him seriously, really. And that does not help the movie at all, because he is like the foundational pillar, the cornerstone of what is supposed to, like, scare you in this movie. I definitely like his character more so, with the ways that he psychologically manipulates the main character and the cool mask that he has where you can interchange the face to change the expression of his mask. It's got some pretty cool ideas to it. And while I'm on that track, there are a few kind of paranormal aspects that there was one singular moment where I was like, wow, okay, that was actually a genuinely bone-chilling visual that they just showed. But other than that, there's this whole cliche of like a creepy phone that, oh, it's not plugged in, but it's able to freaking call. Like, I hate that cliche so much, and this movie does it so many times. It's not scary, it's done to death, and it's ridiculous how much they crutch on this black phone and how unnerving it is. It's unnatural technology. Freaking stupid. And on top of that, they had these weird visual effects where they had the phone like breathing almost. It was kind of moving in and out of the wall. It looked so laughable. And I just couldn't help but just think about how stupid the movie was at that point, even though the tone is trying to imply, hey, this is a very serious movie. This child just got kidnapped. If you don't think this is serious, then you're a child kidnapper. Like, it was very irritating. Most of those kind of criticisms do kind of show their ugly face in the second half of the movie, though, because I actually quite like the setup. There is the dynamic between the main character and his sister. By the time it showed like their family dynamic, all of that stuff was very interesting and very real. Not to mention the movie really has these very realistic portrayals of violence whenever the kids are actually beating each other to death. That stuff really helped to ground the movie and kind of set the stakes of this universe a little bit. But other than that, there really wasn't all that much noteworthy about this movie. It was a fine, kind of horror movie that I guess I didn't regret watching, maybe? I don't know. 5 out of 10 from me. Cuphead the Delicious Last Course. What a fantastic little extension to the already stupendous and impeccable experience of the original Cuphead. Now, I think it's no secret that Cuphead is actually one of the greatest 2D side-scroller platforms ever made. It pretty much bridged the gap for so many people to this run-and-gun style of gameplay, on top of also being one of the most visually creative and ambitious projects that's ever been released from an indie game studio, no less. And this DLC is basically along the lines of a nice slab of ketchup just on top of your Wagyu steak. It's good, you should try it. Now, to start off, I did hear a lot of people kind of criticizing the length of this whole package, which really was such a shock to me because, yeah, it was a little on the short side, but I mean, they really dialed up the whole experience to 11 with all these new bosses. They really made them much more challenging. They made them much more visually interesting. I swear, the animation somehow got even smoother, even crisper than it was at the beginning. The soundtracks gained a whole new orchestra and heaps upon heaps of xylophones. I swear, the people behind MDHR had a xylophone factory in their hometown shut down and just pounced on the opportunity to fit as many of these things in the soundtrack as possible. And it really fits the aesthetic. I really enjoy the variation of the soundtrack and how it kind of almost separates itself from the more jazzy, brass-oriented sound of the original soundtrack. It's very cool, and I have had this soundtrack basically playing on cooldown while I cried about unrequited love pretty much every night of my feudal, puny, weak existence for the past couple of weeks. And speaking of unrequited love, Miss Chalice. Freaking really interesting new mechanics that come with this edition of Miss Chalice. You basically have the opportunity of replacing one of your charms with the opportunity to play as Miss Chalice, and she has a double jump, she has a dash parry instead of a double jump parry. She's got a roll on the ground that gives her invincibility, which is a little clunky to get used to, but it definitely took a while to be able to actually master it, which I enjoyed. It brought a new spin to the usual Cuphead formula that I thought was a really nice addition. Honestly, there's not really that much to say. It's more Cuphead. It's got bosses that are harder, bosses that are just as creatively designed, have amazing character designs. It's got a cool little side minigame sort of thing that kind of breaks up the monotony of the constant boss rush. Yeah, it's fantastic. If you enjoyed the base game, I would definitely bet the devil that you would enjoy this game as well. But let's say, hypothetically, I transform into my Megazord nitpicky self that basically requires everything to be perfect, or else it is not even worth a shred, a mere sliver of my time and effort. And then yeah, I do have a few minor criticisms with the game. The DLC offers a variety of new items and weapons that you could play around with that buff up your character and really help out with some of the boss fights. And this one, called the Crack Shot, is basically as broken as the smoke bomb from the last game. You know, that charm, the smoke bomb, that basically invalidated some bosses to the point where it was a pure cup walk? Yeah, we got another one of those, and the Crack Shot is basically a higher DPS form of the Tracer. So there are some bosses where there's all types of bullet hell elements all over the screen that you're forced to keep track of and try to dodge. But whenever you have the Crack Shot out, it basically just deletes the entire screen for you as long as you're constantly shooting it. So bosses like the Moonshining Gang and the Dogfight one are kind of a lot easier because of the Crack Shot. And just the fact that the difficulty is bumped so incredibly down whenever you have that shot, it's a little irritating to me. But other than that, the story is simplistic and enjoyable, makes a nice driving force for the whole thing. The gameplay just as great. Really, nothing else to say in terms of reservations. It's a great DLC. Go buy it, please. You know what? Screw you. I'm not saying please. Go buy it right now. I freaking hate you if you don't buy this game. 9 out of 10. Man, this album has some of the most high-octane, high-intensity punk rock instrumentations I have ever heard in my life. I was first introduced to this album through some of the rowdier lead singles that they decided to tease the album with, these being Troglodyte and Ain't No Thief. But deeper in the track list, they decided to add a few more bangers because Viagra boys thought that I wasn't taking enough Viagra because my adrenaline was not as heart-pumpingly, disgustingly high as it needed to be this month, apparently. The opening track, Baby Criminal, is another great example of a absolute banger of a track. The instrumentation of this track not only has very high octane, very high intensity punk rock guitar riffs and disgustingly low bass tones, but it also has a nice rhythm to it as well as an underlying swagger, I guess you could say. It's a nice blend of tones and really gives the track a lot of personality. And this kind of stuff definitely permeates through a lot more of the banger-ish cuts on the album. And Troglodyte especially actually has some interesting things to say with the lyrical themes of it. You have these lyrics kind of displaying these people that are looked down upon in society, like a potential workplace shooter and even an internet troll. And it takes these people and takes us way back to when we were just monkeys roaming the earth early on in our evolutionary process. And it equates them to troglodytes who evolved a bit too late, which is a pretty funny concept for a song, I must admit. And this theme of kind of taking real-world problems and taking modern-day issues and equating them back to our earlier evolutionary process kind of brushes out through the rest of the album as well, especially with the closing track, Return to Monkey. Not only does this track feature one of the most intense and just in-your-face instrumentals on the entire album, along with these ghoulish, kind of cultish chants that are littered throughout the chorus and various bridges of the song. Leave society, be a monkey. Leave society. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but it has a tongue-in-cheek almost tone to it, where the ridiculous elements almost add to the song instead of detract away from it. But it also has a fat middle finger, a final swan song to all of these people that the lead singer considers to be idiots. The interesting thing is there's actually a song on this album where the lead singer kind of embodies one of these people that he hates. The song Creepy Crawlers isn't really, I don't know if I'd call it a song, more so like a musical rant or a musical schizophrenic breakdown in a way. The song features the character of someone who believes in every single ridiculous, absurd conspiracy theory that you could even think of. He talks about getting shot up with 4G. He talks about how kids who aren't being vaccinated are being harvested for their pure blood. It's a really wild track because the lead singer is going in and fully embodying this absolute psychopath in every way that he can through his vocal inflections, and he of course gets more and more sporadic as the song progresses. And to perfectly complement this sporadicism, the instrumentation itself even gets more sporadic as the song goes along. Creepy Crawlers has a fantastic progression to it, and it's honestly one of my favorite tracks on the entire record, despite it not being a straightforward banger like some of the other ones. And speaking of the wild and insane acting or delivery from the vocal side of that song, the whole record features a plethora, a complete smorgasbord, if you will, of different vocal stylings and different types of vocalization. In the song, The Cognitive Trade-Off Hypothesis, the instrumentation kind of turns down the volume a little bit. It kind of becomes a bit smoother, a bit more introspective, I guess. And to compensate this, the vocalist displays a ghoulish kind of despondent vocal style that's pulled off very, very well for the guy who is just completely losing his mind one track earlier on Creepy Crawlers. I will say though, there is one song where I believe the vocal style kind of got in the way a little bit or almost went a little too far. The track in question being Big Boy, which features one of the more stripped back, one of the more simplistic instrumentations, but it also features one of the most outlandish, just ridiculous vocal styles of a guy just screaming the chorus vocals and screaming his lyrics throughout the whole thing. I'm a big boy! Freaking, it's... At first, it definitely took some getting used to, and I still think that it's not really pulled off the greatest. The track gets a lot better as it goes along because the instrumentation actually starts to emulate the vocal style and become as eccentric with these really funny vocal melodies of people going, "He's a big boy!" And it's very hilarious and just so much personality on this record. But other than that, if you really enjoy psych rock, punk rock, really intense, raging tracks, definitely check out Troglodyte first. And if you enjoy that, I would suggest listening to the whole rest of the record because it's such a fantastic record in my opinion. Thinking 8 out of 10? Yeah, that sounds about right.